No, that's not what he said. Okay, let me start that again. What did the Buddha say to the New York street hot dog vendor? Make me one with everything. But here's what happened next. After handing the Buddhist his hot dog, and of course it was a tofu hot dog, the vendor says, that'll be $5. The Buddhist hands the vendor a $20 bill. The vendor takes the money, puts it in his pocket, and then he turns and begins to help the next customer. The Buddhist looks puzzled and asks the vendor, hey, excuse me, where is my change? And the vendor replies, change comes from within. So I like that one. All right, let's talk about what we're here to talk about, the power of vision. And by vision, I mean how we see the world and how we see God. When we change how we see the world, we then see changes in our life. It's easy to look at our life and wonder why it isn't bigger or better or this or that. That's what Ernest Holmes, founder of our philosophy and author of our textbook, The Science of Mind, called looking at the effects of our life, something we all do, by the way. And we teach that you can change those effects by changing your focus from the effects to cause. And that's cause, C-A-U-S-E, with a capital C. And now that cause with a capital C, or what Ernest Holmes also called first cause, is another name for the creator of all creation. And for those of us on the spiritual path, that means seeing expansion in our life begins with the way that we see life, and this first cause, or what some might call God or higher power, the universe, spirit. Ernest Holmes also called it the thing itself. It doesn't matter what you call it. That's the power of vision I'm talking about today. The way we see God affects the way we see life, which then in turn affects the way we experience life. And that's what we can control, or that's what we can raise as we go through life. Now, let me ask you this. Do any of you remember that television show from the 1990s called Northern Exposure? Kind of a quirky fish out of water comedy show. Yeah. It took place in the fictional town of Sicily, Alaska, a small quirky town of, I think, around 200 people, very quirky people. And the town needed a new doctor, so in comes Dr. Joel Fleischman, a New York doctor who gives up living in the city to work with these very eccentric residents. And of course, he thinks he knows it all. He knows more than they do. And they, of course, have their own way of doing things. And that kind of conflict between what they know and what he knows, that difference created a very funny show. But in one episode, which I remember so well, and it's why I'm mentioning the show now, Dr. Joel Fleischman's parents come to visit. Now, his father is like a typical stereotype dad. He doesn't say much, but he shows his affection by doing things for Joel, fixing things around the house or around the office. Joel's mother, on the other hand, is the opposite. She's a mother who's constantly talking. Does anybody else have a mother like that, by the way? Just, asking. A mother who constantly talks about everything and about nothing. No thoughts go through her head that are unspoken. When she talks about food, she goes off on tangents about how the food is made and the first time she made it and special ways she can make it, etc. Same with every topic. And she constantly interrupts people. Even when she asks someone a question, she keeps talking so they can't answer. And the chatter just goes on and on and on. And she also smothers her son Joel, tries to insert her life in his life and in his business. And of course, it irritates Joel to no end. But here they come to visit to this kind of quirky, wonderful little place in Alaska. And his mother is taken aback a bit by the vastness of the Alaska frontier and how quiet it all is. It really affects her. And she keeps seeing an eagle, which kind of frightens her and fascinates her at the same time. And as the episode goes on, she's fascinated more and more with the vastness of this open space and of that eagle. And at one point in the episode, she goes out for a walk and she finds herself walking along a ledge. Now, I'm not recommending you go do this, by the way. She walks along a ledge, this small cliff, and she's quiet for once. And she's breathing deeply, and she sees the eagle. It's so close. She steps forward a bit. She's on the very ledge. You see some of the rocks fall as she steps forward. It's so close, this eagle, so close. And she reaches again for it and falls off the cliff. And as she's falling, they film it really beautifully. As she's falling, she has this moment where she thinks she's flying. And she smiles because it's so freeing. And then she falls to the ground. She's shaken, but she's okay. But the first thing she does when she gets up is to look up to see if the eagle is still there. She comes back from this fall to the house a changed woman. She flew. Once you experience that vastness, you can't go back to being who you were before. She changed. She doesn't speak so much. She thinks more. She's calm. And this new her irritates her son, Joel, even more than before because he knew the person she was. But now this new her was catching him off guard. She had a calm and a peace he couldn't relate to. She was bigger than she was before. The vastness broke open her experience. Again, obviously, I don't suggest anyone fall off any cliff to get any spiritual awakening. It was just a stage scene in a television show, but it's a metaphor and it's a great one. When we step off the cliff of what we think we know and experience the vastness of the divine, we are changed. We can't go back to our smaller beliefs, our smaller way of looking at, everything. Why? Because we've outgrown it. It's too confining. Our old, outdated beliefs don't work for us anymore. They're too small. This might include your old idea of what God is and isn't. But put simply, when you see a smaller God, you'll experience a smaller life. But when you expand your view, you have an expanded life. Years ago, I had the opportunity to hang out briefly with that theologian and author, Matthew Fox. I don't know how many of you remember him or read his books. He wrote a book called Original Blessing, which was one of those seminal books of, the last 30 or 40 years that really shifted consciousness. He said we're not born with original sin, as the old-time religion teaches, but rather we're born with original blessing, since we're created by the great blessing. And I don't remember what he and I talked about too much, but I do remember that I saw he had a backpack or a bag of some sort. And on that bag, there was a button, a big button, and that button said, God is too big to fit into just one religion. I loved that. And he reminded me and others that it's good to take time to review our vision of God and keep expanding it as we expand. I remember when I first came to this teaching, just how mind blown I was by the difference in the God of this teaching versus the teaching of what I grew up with. And now I keep expanding it. And as I keep expanding it, I keep changing. That's what we're talking about here, the power of our vision. How do we know if the God we've believed in, if the one we even believe in now is too small? Is our vision of God too small? So, as the button said, if you think God is confined to just one religion, your God is probably too small. After all, there are approximately 10,000 religions practiced in the world. Which one is the right one? The one you happen to be born into? The biggest one? The kindest one? The one someone else tells you to believe in? Well, here are some other ways I think we keep our vision of God too small. So if you think God is like a scolding parent, your God is too small. And if you think God is like a policeman or judge with tons of rules, your God is too small. If you think God is like Santa Claus, who keeps track of when you're being naughty or nice and gives out rewards when you're being nice, your God is too small. If you think God allows his creation to be ruled by an evil devil that he created, your God is too small. If you think God answers your prayers for your sports team to win over the other team's prayers for them to win, your God is probably too small. If you think God created just one inspired book, written by men, by the way, thousands of years ago, who believed the world was flat, but that book is supposed to contain instructions for ever, the evolving world, your God is probably too small. By the way, theologians and biblical historians estimate that there are about 2,000 errors and inconsistencies in that book. Wouldn't a bigger God get it right? If you think God only allows certain people to go to heaven, your God is too small. And if you think God cares more about who a person loves than about war, hunger, and poverty, your God is too small. Remember, Jesus did not have litmus tests on who he would feed or who he would help or who he would heal. If you think God blesses any one group or any one nation above others, your God is probably too small. And if you think God is part of any political party, your God is too small. And if you think God causes tornadoes or tsunamis or any other natural disaster as punishment or retribution for anything, your God is too small. And if you think God doesn't like the very same people, coincidentally, that you don't like, your God is too small. And if you think God is as angry as you are, your God is too small. And if you think God created a fiery hell that in his love sends people to for eternity if they don't bow down, your God is too small. And in fact, if you think God is only out there, separate from you, or if your God is male or white or even a person figure, your God is too small. We could go on and on, but how could God be any of those very human-like projections? Wouldn't the creator of all creation be more imaginative than that? When you think about the vastness of the creator, think about this. Roses. There are hundreds of types of roses. Tulips. Did you know that there are 4,000 horticultural varieties of tulips? In fact, there are over 391,000 species of plants on this planet. At least those are the ones we know of, and they're discovering more every year. There are over 50 breeds of cats, 200 breeds of dogs, 500 species of toads in this world. Toads. There are 7,600 species of frogs. And yes, by the way, frogs and toads are different, as I discovered researching all of these different species. I had no idea. Did you know there are dozens of animals that exhibit heterosexual, homosexual, and bisexual behaviors? Did you know that there are nearly 24 animals that can change genders? That's only the ones that we know of. Did you know there are even 3 animals that we know of where the male is the one who gives birth? There are estimated tens of thousands of species that we still haven't even discovered. We think we know it all, but we don't. Not to mention the deep mysteries of the oceans and the tens of thousands of species of sea life. How about this? There are 13,800 species of ants that are known. Ants. In fact, there are over 1 million species of insects that have been discovered. And scientists estimate another 9 million types of species of insects that we haven't discovered yet. And there are 1.4 billion insects for each and every person on this planet. I mean, that is a very prolific creator. The great creator is brilliant in its vastness and imagination and variety. No creator like that can be so limited as just this or that. The great creator clearly revels in uniqueness and difference. Otherwise, why would the great creator have created so many different everythings? And if you still think God can only fit into one religion or something that we can even fully grasp, consider this. The Earth orbits the sun in our solar system. The sun is only one of billions of stars in the Milky Way galaxy. And there are between 100 billion and 200 billion galaxies in the universe. The universe that we can track is 7 billion light years across, and I'm sure it's much bigger than even that. There are approximately 1 septillion stars in the universe. That's one with 24 zeros after it. I mean, when I contemplate the vastness of everything, it's mind-blowing. And then if I try to fit all of that into this puny, punitive, clearly human-made version of God that's so often pushed on us, I remember all over again, God, whatever you conceive that to be, is infinite. So my view of God should also continue to expand and evolve and be bigger than I ever think. Why is this important? Because when we step out of right and wrong, black and white duality, and we begin to plug into that vast power, which, as Ernest Holmes said, we can direct to expand in our lives, our understanding of God grows, and therefore we grow every day. Ernest Holmes, when he described our philosophy, would often use a phrase, which is that we, on our path, are open at the top. He used that phrase to remind us that we never will know it all. How could we? And that what we believe today will grow and evolve tomorrow, and it should. In the Tao Te Ching, the book of the Taoist religion, it says that the Tao, or the way that is named, is not the Tao. Why? Because the Tao or way that can be named is already too small. For the Tao or the way is so vast beyond what we can name. When we step off the cliff of our understanding, we fly. And like Dr. Joel Fleishman's mother in Northern Exposure, we are changed by it, speechless. We realize that the infinite mind is so much more vast than we believe. We teach that we can connect to this vastness through first cause, through affirmative prayer, which we call spiritual mind treatment. We are using prayer as a treatment to expand our thinking and connect through our thoughts to that first cause. And of course, we know treatments have 5 main steps to it. We recognize this infinite first cause, which encompasses everything that is in existence. We connect ourselves to that all-encompassing energy. Then from that high vantage point, we align our desires and thoughts and actions with that high energy. Then we give thanks. And then we release it into this vast wisdom and trust it to be so. When I first became a practitioner, I've told this story before, my practitioner teacher, Dr. Patty Lukenbach at Mile High Church in Denver, used to tell us students, we'd like to concentrate on that third step of what we want. And she'd say, no, that should be the smallest of the 5 steps. The biggest step should be the first one, realizing that infinite one mind, that first cause, that was the most important step because it informs everything else we do. Lift your inner vision, she would say. Focus on God. And as my old friend, Dr. Moira Fox, who's a minister out on the West Coast, and Reverend Neil knows her, what she would tell us, and this is from a talk that she gave, which I love so much, I transcribed it. She said this, she said, Ernest Holmes says, I cry. I cry when I remember the bigness within me. I cry. That it flows through me with all of its power. I cry. And then she says, when was the last time you cried from this awareness? She said, I think that all of our prayers ought to be drenched in tears when we come to the realization of what is happening. She says, I can remember the very first time I really got it, and I knew I got it because I felt it, and it felt itself in me. When I first realized that right where I am, God is, I cried. How could this be? Right where I am, God is. And I went, oh my God. She said, oh my God, I think I have it. I think I've got it. I think I know what it is. And then she went on to say, see, once you get it, you can never go back to the smallness that you've now outgrown. Once you've felt it, you can go back again and again and again and keep growing in your awareness of it. She reminds us, right where I am, right where you are, right where I am is the living presence, and the living presence that is omniscient, omnipotent, and omnipresent, right where I am, available to me that I can tap into and use. That's what the thing itself is. It's the power, the one and only power in this universe that is greater than me and you and anything else besides that. And I can use it. And she ended by saying, this is the only reason everything exists, so that the Almighty, the infinite intelligent force of the universe can express its bliss through all of creation. Its bliss. Not its sadness, not its sorrow, not its pain, but its joy, its bliss. So we have to take it upon ourselves to be the absolute expressions of Spirit's own joy, Spirit's own bliss, and get out of the way and let Spirit dance the song of joy within us and through us and by means of us, and take us into that place where we truly belong, which is a place of celebration, a place of resurrection, a place of knowing who and what we are, and that it is good. It is very, very good. Step off the cliff of what you think you know and connect with the higher power of that higher vision and live from that truth. The truth of the infinite vastness of Spirit, not up there, not someone else's idea of it, but your experience of it. In closing, I'm going to read from Julia Cameron in her book, Walking in This World, which is the book the current Artist Way group is studying. And we're going to have some more Artist Way groups coming, by the way. So if you're interested, stay tuned. But on page 181 of Walking in This World, this is the way she puts it. She says this: when we acknowledge the right of mystery to intercept and direct us, we acknowledge the larger issue that life is a spiritual dance, and that our unseen partner has steps to teach us if we will allow ourselves to be led. The next time you are restless, remind yourself that is the universe asking, shall we dance? So let's take this message inside right now. Let's take it to that inner place where we can dance on the ledge with the divine. And breathe and close your eyes as we just move into that place where my practitioner teacher taught is the most important place to begin, which is oneness, the vastness, the greatness, the sheer unlimited imagination of the great creator. Every time we think we're held, informed, and kept by this being, it always says to us, surprise me. It's always bigger than we think. It's bigger today than it was yesterday. And as I keep evolving my vision of what it is, it will be even bigger tomorrow. And as we live from that higher and higher and higher place, our higher understanding of the vastness of the energy of life itself, we bring it into our experience, because that's when we recognize that we are one with all of that. It's in our very spiritual DNA. It is who we are and whose we are. And from that high place, we now align our thoughts, words, and actions with this high divine energy truth. There is only the one. And it is expressing through me and through you in ever greater ways today, right now. And we allow that to be so. And how could we be anything other than so very grateful for it? And with this as our truth and our grateful heart overflowing from this vastness that makes us cry with awe, we release this treatment to law, knowing that it is true, even as I speak it for each one of us, right here, right now. And together we say, and so it is.
I am perfect as I am. I am God's unerring plan. Even broken parts of me make me who I'm meant to be. When I'm in my darkest place, something brings me to God's grace. And with tears and trembling hands, I remember whose I am. When my heart is broken wide, God is reaching deep inside, helping me to know my worth as I walk upon this earth. When I'm in my darkest place, something brings me to God's grace. And with tears and trembling hands, I remember whose I am. I am perfect as I am. I am God's unerring plan. Even broken parts of me make me who I'm meant to be. Perfect. Perfect.